Hello there, my fellow Steemians. I am so excited about this video and I want to share with you. It's with Andrarchy. He is the Community Liaison for Steemit, and he's giving us some specific ideas on this video, on this interview, about how to create content, specifically what to do when you're a minnow getting started. And by the way, the same principles apply to dolphins and whales, wherever you are, creating content, what to do when you're stuck and you're going, I don't know what to do, when to tell stories, and when not to. Also, lots of information packed into this one. You want to join me as I talk to the amazing Andrarchy. Hey, you know, Steemit is a powerful little platform that we love because of the content and because of the community. We've got a lot of opportunities there, and someone that is joining me right now from his offices in New York is Andrarchy. He is in charge of a lot of the content and the community that's going on there, and it's really good to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to take a look at some of the things that are happening. I love the kind of work that you've done. You've put out a lot of good information showing us what to do in Steemit, and those principles tend to apply in other platforms as well. But if someone were to come to you and say, okay, I'm really getting started now, I'm a minnow, just joined Steemit, what are some key principles that that person really should know in order to be successful working with Steemit?
Well, the first thing I think you have to figure out is what you want to do on the platform. And so if you want to be a content creator, for example, not everybody has to be a content creator. Not everybody wants to be a content creator. So there's other things you can do. But if you decide you want to be a content creator, then the most important lesson that I think you can learn is that it all comes down to story. What is the story that you're telling? And everything else is secondary. And that's life. That's any other social media platform, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whatever. At the end of the day, what motivates people to get emotional about things, to get invested in things, is that they hear a story that engages them. They hear a compelling story. And that, I think, is the most important takeaway anybody can get, from me at least. But yeah, this is something you hear everywhere. Right.
As a professional speaker myself, we know the importance of stories when you're speaking and putting it together. But let me ask you this then. One of the things we hear from people often is they say, well, nothing happens to me. I don't know how to tell a story, and nothing ever really goes on that is worthwhile that's there. What would you say to that person who says, hey, nothing's happening to me. I don't know how to tell stories?
Well, I would question whether telling stories is really something they want to do if that's how they feel. Now, if they decide that it really is something they want to do, I'm not one of these people who believes that you can just say, well, I want money and this is a way to get money, so I'm going to do that. I don't think that works. I think that you wind up fighting yourself, because if you don't love it, if you're not passionate about it, if you don't get intense rewards. Back when I was a content creator on my own, just using the platform just like any other user, I was addicted to creating content on the platform. I loved the feedback, and I loved the high I would get when I posted something that I was proud of. And if the community rewarded that, all the better. But if I was genuinely proud of what I put out, which usually means that it was an original piece of work, there was something innovative or interesting, something that I hadn't heard anywhere else, and I put a lot of thought into it, and I really struggled with myself. This was, I think, the hardest lesson of being a content creator, was that it shouldn't feel easy. The work that I put out that I'm proudest of was also the biggest struggle. I didn't know how I was going to solve the problems. I didn't know what the content was going to wind up looking like. I didn't know if I was going to be able to find the answers I was looking for. And that's when you know you're really onto something, when you don't know if you're going to succeed at creating something good. And lots of times that I created content that I just threw away because I didn't get there. And I think that's a lot, that's a big part of something people don't see. So they see what content gets put out. They see the successes of other content creators. They don't see the failures. They don't see what ends up on the editing room floor.
Yeah.
And that's a really important lesson to bear in mind, is that great content creators, not that I'm saying I am one, but I've certainly heard them talk about, you know, their failures and knowing when not to share something, or just accepting the failures. Not everybody loves everything. You know, Ridley Scott has put out bad movies. Almost every director has put out a movie that they didn't love or proud of, but that doesn't make them a bad content creator. It usually means that they're really trying to do something great, and sometimes you fail. And being at peace with failure, I think, is another important lesson.
Oh, I like that. Being at peace with failure and realize that failure is not the end. It's just a learning lesson.
If you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yeah, exactly. We have to go for that. Well, when someone's trying to create content, what would you recommend for them if they're thinking, I can't quite get it going, I'm running into that blank space, I don't know what to do, and they need to put something out, they want to do something. What techniques have you found are helpful to kind of trigger that and get it going for you in creating content?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I definitely struggled with myself. And I believe that Steemit is an amazing resource for this, because it forces you to A/B test. And when I first started out, my posts obviously didn't do well, just like anybody else. And it wasn't until I freaked out and was like, nothing I'm doing is working. I'm just going to, I keep thinking about videos that I'm going to make, but I never make them. I'm trying to perfect them. And that's my enemy. So I'm just going to throw up a video camera and talk about the two things that I know a lot about, because I'm basically obsessed with them. And it was Tesla Motors and Steemit. And I saw a parallel there. And that wound up being my effectively big break in the Steemit platform. And I think that was because I was so passionate. These were the things that I thought about for myself for no reason. It wasn't because I thought that people would like it. And I think ironically, that's the stuff people like the most. So I would say to somebody asking that question, what is that thing you think about when you don't have to think about anything? It's where your mind always goes to. And another way I've thought about it is, actually, this comes from advice I used to give people when they were making their online dating profiles. I know that's weird, but I would tell them to write something that they thought was hilarious, that they thought nobody else, but something they thought nobody else would find funny. That's the key. So I would say to them, throughout the day, keep track of those things that make you chuckle, that make you that you think are funny, but that you know, that you go, oh my God, if people knew that I laughed at that, they'd never, you know, obviously you don't want to say anything too controversial, but if you experience something where you go, I think that's interesting, I think that's funny, but you know what? Nobody else probably does. But the truth is that if you find that interesting, you know, guys like Tim Ferriss and some other people, I think they talk about, you know, the 10,000 or the 1,000 passionate fans.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you that small number of really valuable fans. And they're the ones who fuel your growth. And that's how you get them, because that's authenticity. And if you want to nail down one of the other big learning points, I would say, one of the big issues when you're creating content of any type, whether it's a blockbuster movie or just, you know, a webcam YouTube video, it's authenticity. It's exposing your true self to your audience so that they can feel like they get to know you.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And those of you that are watching this, think about that. You want to be authentic and tell the story that is important to you. And it's kind of like if you were really interested in, let's say, moose stories, and you just loved jokes about moose, whatever. I'm pulling this out of the air here. So moose, but there might be some people that like that. And so you're going to attract the people that also will be like you, and they will like it. And besides, you have a much happier life too when you're around people that think like you, and rather than people that are disagreeing with you and moving in a different direction. Well, I wanted to ask you another question too. You are the community liaison for Steemit. You work there. We know that community is important. Talk to us about why community in Steemit is important and really good ways that we can develop strong community ties within Steemit.
Yeah, absolutely. But first I just want to say one more thing about
Sure.
that topic we were just covering, which is that just because you're covering your subject matter is something that you're passionate about, and maybe you think that it's something nobody else will be interested in. But the funny part is that if you tell great stories about that thing, if you're passionate about it, and if you really know a lot about it, it actually could do extremely well. Because if somebody wrote an amazing article about moose, about what is that?
Yeah.
Isn't the plural
Mooses?
moose?
I don't know. What is the plural
Mooses?
for mooses?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's
Yeah.
a term for it, and somebody Google that and let us know what it is in the comments
Yeah.
below.
But if it's authentic and if it's interesting and it's insightful, that actually sounds interesting to me. So I just wanted to add that point, that just because you're doing that doesn't mean you can't have mass appeal. In fact, that's what people want to see. They want to experience new information. It all comes down to information, and humans being information-hungry organisms. We want information, we want new information, and ideally we want good information.
Yep, I would put an exclamation mark behind that.
So back to the question of community and how we try to build community. Well, in my role as community liaison, and now my role is kind of expanded into some other areas too. I'm very involved with content and marketing and communications. What I try to do is be there for the community. I want everybody to know that they can reach out to me and that I'm listening. As far as how we can nurture communities, I think communication is really important for that. And we haven't been as good about communicating in the past as we could have been. And so right now we're working really hard to figure out how we can be better communicators without taking away from the engineer's time. Because that's really the problem, is that where the vast majority of Steemit employees are engineers, and the vast majority of them, in fact, all of them, are putting in extremely long hours. We're all incredibly passionate about about this platform. So we all choose to work really long hours. But at the same time, you don't want to go to somebody who's making the site work or making sure that the blockchain can't break and go to them, hey man, can you write a blog post? So because the last 6 months or so have been very engineering heavy, and we've had a lot of important engineering benchmarks we wanted to get through, we weren't able to communicate as much as we wanted to. And so right now, I think one of the more important things that we're working on is improving our communication with the community so that they feel like we're a part of it. And I think SteamFest 2 really highlighted the importance of this point. Mm-hmm. And how simple it really is, because just being you could tell there was such a shift that occurred when people were just able to see that the team members were there, to see that they really truly care about the platform as much as anybody else who uses it. Maybe
they're
more.
Real human beings. Here they are.
They're real human beings. They're, in my opinion, and of course I'm biased, they're the best blockchain team in the world. They know their stuff. They care about the platform. There's nothing more you can ask. And just getting to see that made so many people who had come to SteamFest, and I think some people were skeptical. You know, they'd felt that that the platform wasn't progressing at the rate or in the direction that they wanted it to. And I think everybody who was at SteamFest 2 came around. And I think that was 90% of it, was just seeing the team members, seeing their passion, seeing their intelligence through the talks, but also through just ordinary interactions.
Mm-hmm. So it would seem like for building that community and being able to strengthen it stronger for someone who's just getting started, it's communication. It's get to know people and be there for them, help them, and support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's as far as what we can do from a non-engineering level. But on the other hand, of course, we can't talk about community without talking about the community's feature. And I think that feature that is coming relatively soon to the Steem blockchain and Steemit.com will, of course, do a tremendous amount to foster both a meta community, because I think it'll enable Steemians to live to cohabitate more peacefully, because it'll allow people to segregate into their preferred niches so that it's not all just one stream. So I think that'll help. And then at the same time, by going into those individual communities, if you're a gamer, you'll be able to go into a gamer community. If you're a YouTuber, there can be a YouTuber community. You'll be able to create communities around whatever you want and acquire slightly more moderating control over. The moderators of these communities will have extra powers so that they can make sure that the community is as good as it can be. And so I think that'll also do a tremendous amount to help us as one big community, and then also help develop lots and lots of smaller communities.
I like that. Well, when I get a chance to be around someone who's really smart, like you, I always like to ask them something about where you go to the well to be fed. What blogs do you read? What podcasts do you listen to? YouTube channels or particular people on Steemit that you follow? How do you get your information, and where do you go to be fed intellectually?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. One of the things I've been saying a lot lately is that my knowledge about everything else aside from Steemit has been decreasing at an exponential rate the longer I stay on the team, because there's so much information to acquire as a team member. I spend probably hours a day, and this isn't a really helpful answer, but in our team Slack, just watching what all the different departments are working on. Because as our resident non-engineer, I feel it's my responsibility to know what they're doing so that I can always communicate to the community what the engineers are working on. So with respect to communities, I have to see what's going on with a software layer being developed called HiveMind. That's going to, and then I have to know that not only is HiveMind going to enable things like communities, but it's actually going to enable additional features like unre-steaming and adding notes to your re-steams. So there's just a sea of stuff like that going on. And I feel insanely grateful and privileged to have access to this level of information, because like that's signal right there. There is zero noise in our team Slack. I just get direct insight into one of the best blockchain teams in the world and what they're all working on. And I get to see their arguments and what they're talking about. As far as who I follow on Steemit, Kevin Wong has always been a person I follow. Luke Stokes. Luke Stokes, I think, is doing great stuff. He's basically becoming a new age journalist. I really, really like Luke Stokes as a person.
And good material out there. Good post.
Yeah, he's great. Tim Cliff also doing great stuff. Ned, obviously. As far as YouTubers, my favorite two YouTubers. These are going to be weird. Although one isn't so weird. One is a guy named Jordan Peterson. He's
from University of Toronto.
Yeah. I love psychology. I love learning. I actually don't watch his videos about the stuff that he's most famous about. I just love his educational videos, predominantly. So he's great. There's a guy named Dave Rubin who I watch every once in a while.
Out in Los Angeles, really good videos.
Yeah. I think he's good. I really like these people who are trying to be unbiased and trying to listen to both sides. I think that's really important right now. And then the last one, which is a weird one, but I highly, highly recommend this person to anyone who's looking to leapfrog everybody else in their understanding of economics. And it's a YouTube channel. It's called Prof. Steve Keen.
I haven't heard of that. Prof. Steve King?
Keen, Keen.
Prof. Steve Keen. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he's Professor Steve Keen. He's an economics professor out of a place called Kingston University. He wrote a book called Debunking Economics. So he's kind of an anti-economist, except he's trained as an economist. He's brilliant. And I was overjoyed to discover that just yesterday he did his first video on cryptocurrencies. So he's finally weighing in on that too. But he is just doing the best work in economics right now in the world, in my opinion. And the beauty of YouTube is that anybody can go in there and learn from it.
Yeah, it truly is amazing. I think we're born at a good time to be able to tap into YouTube now. You're going to the University of YouTube is common for all of us. You want to know about something? We go over there, type it in, and usually see a variety of topics, and we get to pick and choose. And some of them are going to be good, some of them not quite as good. That's okay. We learn from that. I think in a way, it's kind of like Steemit. It's a wonderful community, and on behalf of all the Steemit users out there, we appreciate the work you're doing as a community liaison to put it together and to make it all come together. Before I let you go, any final words that you would say to the minnows that are out there, to the dolphins, or to the whales, people that are out there been very conversant with and using Steemit a lot? Any final words you want to leave for them?
Well, I would just get back to that issue of trying to encourage people to create compelling stories. But then I also want to encourage people to think about something called meta-narratives, which are larger stories than just one post. Your content will be much more powerful if each post isn't just a story in and of itself, beginning, middle, and end, climax, new information, but if it's nested within a larger story. And so to that end, I think that kind of dovetails nicely into another way you can find a place in Steemit and in the Steam ecosystem if you are not interested in creating content or curating or commenting, which are all ways that you can obviously generate revenue. But if you're not interested in that, I think that projects are a great meta-narrative. So getting involved in a bigger project, something that's already going on, for example, utopian.io or DTube, and finding a project that you think is awesome and then trying to find your place within that project and help that project grow and help create content about that project. That's a great way to find meta-narratives that you can then develop smaller narratives. And the beauty of meta-narratives and large-scale stories is that they are a bottomless well from which you can draw content. There's always something new to write about if you're part of an ongoing project that's trying to solve a really tough problem.
I like it. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. So those of you watching this, think about those areas you can get into. Get into DTube, marvelous platform. We've talked to Hyman Danger, who created that, put it together, and he gave us some really good ideas on this series here as well. Get into that, or some of the other. D-Sound is another one. There are multiple projects out there. Find one that works right for you, or more than one, and really get in there and work with it. Well, Andrarchy, if people want to get in touch with you, what would you say would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, anyone is free to email me at andrarchy@steemit.com. That's my work email. You can also find me at Andrarchy on steemit.chat. And of course, steemit.com/@Andrarchy. You can comment on my posts, find me that way.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it, and some real good wisdom. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And for those of you that are watching this, think about what you just heard. You just heard from a very wise man, a man that I have admired for a long time, just really tickled to have him on here to talk to us and to share ideas. And take those ideas, build on top of them, start telling your story, start building the narratives, and think about what he said about the meta stories that you can build, what you can do. Steemit is a great platform to experiment with that, to try it, and don't worry about failing. Get in there. If you fall down, no problem. You got a community of people that have also fallen from time to time, and we'll be happy to pick you up and get going again. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Terry Brock, at Terry Brock over on Steemit, and you can leave me a note on Steemit Chat, just at Terry Brock there on Steemit Chat. It'll be a great way to do it, and you can send me an email, terry@terrybrock.com, and I'll look forward to hearing from you.